All right. All right, good afternoon. We'll now bring the regular afternoon meeting of council to order. And the first item is the adoption and receipt of the agenda items. If I could have a motion, please. Councillor Arneson, second by Councillor Whitmarsh. All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Next item is the adoption of the regular afternoon council meeting minutes of July 23rd, 2018. Councillor Fox, seconder. Councillor Whitmarsh, any errors or omissions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed and carried. And now I'd ask for a motion to resolve into special close for the items on the agenda and on table. Councillor Fox, second by Councillor Arneson. Councillor Long.
Two items, Your Worship. One personnel and another property.
Okay, and property. Okay, so with that, I'll ask for a motion. All those in favor or the question? Thank you. All opposed? That's carried. We'll now resolve to special close. Thank you. Reconvene the regular afternoon meeting, and sorry, I have a cold, so my voice is going to be a little bit crackly. I do apologize for the delay that it took to get out here, so we're going to be changing things up to try and get everything through. So because it's just about quarter, we have a bylaw that restricts our meeting to 6:30. We've got a motion to extend it to 6:45. So 6:45, we're going to take a 15-minute break. We're going to come in, and then we're going to commence with the afternoon meeting, where there are a couple of delegations we'll hear at 7 o'clock, and we'll go through the afternoon meeting until about 7:30. Then we'll hopefully be able to start with the evening meeting at that time. And just ask council their indulgence. D1, which is reducing particular matter emissions. They have agreed to come back on October the 1st, so with unanimous consent, with that, D1 will be withdrawn from the agenda. And so then the next items will be the delegations, of which there are two, and we'll hear those at 7 o'clock. So I would now ask for a motion to adjourn to 7 o'clock. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Qualley, Councillor Davis seconds it. Show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed and carried. Thank you. We did have to do all that process, but we'll be back at 7. Susan. Name's right. I'm sorry. Micah? Okay. Okay, thank you. I'll just get your microphone on there. And you have 5 minutes to present to us. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm Micah Vanica, and this is my sister Imke Vanica. I would like to thank the mayor and the council members for giving us this opportunity to address you today. This matter is very dear to us, so we appreciate the time still this evening. We are here to request that our application to subdivide be passed by the council so that it can be reviewed by the ALC. What we are requesting is that our farmland be restored to the 2 original smaller farm parcels so that our parents can continue to farm and live out their lives here in Langley on the farm. Yeah. And there you see a picture of it. We moved here 40 years ago from a working 300-acre sheep farm in Germany, which had been in our family for a few centuries. It was a difficult transition for us, and we've now spent 40 years building this farm here in Langley, and we don't want to lose our roots here. Since we arrived here from Germany in the 1970s, we have devoted ourselves to putting the land to its best use. My parents, my sister and I worked to clear the land that now holds the blueberry field, and that is what you see on the far left, next to parcel A. I remember well walking behind the tractor and the trailer, picking rocks out of the soil so that we could plant one of the first blueberry farms here in Langley. At that time, Rindt and Riedigers had Strawberry Hill, and we decided to establish Blueberry Hill Farm with that field to the west. In the mid-'80s, we began leasing the 3 parcels of land that totaled 32 acres to the east of parcel A, and part of that is parcel B. We wanted to plant kiwis, and we actually pioneered kiwi farming in BC in collaboration with UBC. This kind of farming proved quite a bit more challenging than we expected, even with the support from the provincial government, who was testing our kiwi farming methods on Vancouver Island at the time. In 1992, we sold the blueberry field to the west to cover the financial losses that we had incurred. In order to be able to sell, we were asked to purchase the 10-acre parcel to the east, directly adjacent to our land, and that is parcel B that you see here, as a condition set by the ALC. And this then effectively ended the lease of the 32 acres, and it resulted in the current farm made up of those 2 parcels that you see, A and B.
And here we are today. In 2017, my father suffered a stroke, and this has affected currently our ability to manage our existing farm. As a family, we can continue to farm the smaller parcel, but we'd like to see the 10-acre parcel be put to better use than it is now. We're not asking to reduce farmland. We understand the zoning bylaw that's in place. It's there to protect farmland, and that's what we want to do, is protect our farmland. The dedicated road allowance that currently divides the 2 original parcels has been there longer than the bylaw that requires a minimum lot size of 20 acres for properties zoned in the RU3, which is our farm. The 2 parcels have always been divided, as is evident in the land plans. Hence the hooking together of the land parcels when we purchased the 10 acres. We bought the land in 1992, and the zoning bylaw came into effect in 1993. Now, we've also heard of other properties in our neighborhood in Telegraph Trail along Telegraph Trail subdivided down into parcels smaller than 20 acres. Now, I know each case is unique, as is ours, and I believe that this proposed restoring of the 2 farm parcels would support the best use of land going into the future, and it would allow my family to continue to farm in Langley as we have for the last 40 years. Now, there's a strong demand in Metro Vancouver for the establishment of small lot agriculture due to not only the cost of land, but also the diversity of farming. The need for small lot farming is reflected in the statements recently by the Ministry of Agriculture. The Minister, Lana Popham, has given her support for more resources targeted at new entrants into small lot agriculture. This support also aligns with the peer-reviewed agricultural plans and practices that are being put into place by a younger generation of small lot farmers. The Township of Langley might want to complement the province's initiatives in this area by being supportive of the creation of smaller-sized parcels of land in certain circumstances, like ours. I mean, what's wrong with being innovative and supportive of small lot agriculture and bringing more young people into farming by rezoning select areas into 5 or 10 acre parcels? I think the mean age of farmers here is 55 right now. So in conclusion, what we're asking is to have the original 2 parcels of farmland restored so that the agricultural activity will continue on both farm parcels. By approving this application, you are allowing the ALC to decide how this property can best meet the needs of agricultural land development in BC. And we're asking that we be given the opportunity to bring this to the ALC. And so thank you again for giving us a chance to speak today. We also just want to mention we'd be happy to work with council and city staff in any way that's appropriate and on innovative approaches to agricultural development for small lot agriculture in the township. Maybe you might even want to consider us a test case moving forward to ensure best practices in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I do have some questions from council. Councillor Fox?
Thank you. Can you go back to the very first slide, please? Or the second one? There. Okay. So I'm just trying to, there's a road easement that divides parcel A and parcel B.
Yes.
But they're the same title?
Yes.
When were they brought together as, you indicated historically they weren't the same title?
No. In 1992, when we sold the land that's to the left
yeah, the
of
blueberry
parcel
farm.
A, yeah, they ALC said that we had to buy the 10 acres that was under lease.
And it was hooked.
And so they were both hooked. Like that's the hooking, that's what they refer
So
to.
the ALC told you you had to buy that?
Yes. I believe it was or that or the township, but we were told we had to buy the 10 acres to hook to the 6 acres or we couldn't sell the other side.
Okay, so if this was to go through, your residence is on parcel A?
Correct.
And you were looking to subdivide and then you would sell parcel B?
We might not. We're unsure as we as a family collectively can farm A. There's an orchard that we've started there right now to
That's the
rejuvenate.
picture, the next slide.
Yes.
And then,
So B, essentially, we would most likely sell, but to who we considered actually, my husband and his family has considered purchasing it. So that's why I'm saying we're unsure at this point if we would. We're interested in developing it as a small farm.
okay, I just find it interesting that they made you make it one title. That's,
We did too.
And,
Okay.
and just to add, it's actually pretty tricky because we cannot actually drive a tractor across that so-called road. We need to exit parcel A, go along the street, and then enter parcel B in another driveway because of
There's no joint farming, obviously, because of the.
you could never
you
connect.
physically,
No, that's
physically
what-
you can,
That's what we've been told by the township, actually.
but it is illegal to drive across and work across
Farm
that
across
boundary.
it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's I would think because it is a road, you
It's a
need
road
a highway
line.
use permit
Yes.
and
Yes.
go through all of those processes.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Richter.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I had a question
Sorry.
like Councillor Fox as well with regards to when you had to put the 2 parcels together, but that was in the 1980s, correct?
1992.
1992. Okay, parcel B, is it farmed right now?
It's hay.
It's
hay
hay.
production. Yeah.
And now I see it's across from the Thunderbird Show Park, so I've seen trailers, I think, parked there as well when they have their big events.
Yes.
Yeah. If it is separated out, are you going to put it in something other than hay?
Yes.
Yeah?
That is
Okay.
the
That's the
plan.
hope.
Okay.
We've been talking about, vegetable, small scale,
Okay.
multiple.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. There's no further questions.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Okay, the next delegation is Mr. Jonathan Howling.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Jonathan Howling, for the record. Do I have to state my address or just my name?
Oh, helpful for me.
Of 8438 207 A Street in Langley, BC. For years now, my wife and I have been trying to build a small greenhouse. We wanted to grow vegetables, but on a smaller, more interactive, and a more intimate scale. We wanted to be in the Fort Langley area for a plethora of reasons, but the main problem is our inability to afford land. This is the same problem facing many people and preventing young people especially from getting into farming. So I created a business plan. I got initial support from Farm Credit Canada, which is Canada's largest agricultural lender, and I literally went door to door until we met Dr. Steve and Laura Hansen. And as you can see from the photos in your handout, I think it's E2 or F2. Is it here, actually? No, it's not there. Okay.
F2. Yep.
As you can see from the photos, the property was perfect in two ways. First, Dr. Stephen and Laura Hansen have owned the property for almost 20 years. And some of it's able to be farmed by the dairy next door. The 8-acre section that we were proposing to subdivide was the one piece of property that was not able to be farmed and unable to grow on. The ground is poor. It's made up of clay. It is topographically uneven. It's separated from the rest of the property by large drainage ditches. And these are just 3 of the 21 reasons expressed in support of this application. A small greenhouse is a very practical way to utilize poor agricultural land. It's also perfect because subdividing this land accomplishes the goals and intentions of the agricultural viability strategy adopted by this council in 2013, as well as the Agricultural Land Commission mandate in 2006 and the Metro Vancouver Regional Growth Strategy. This is quite rare, as you know. Now, there are still challenges to face, and although most of the land surrounding allows for 8-acre lots, this particular piece doesn't. And so staff, as I expected, were not able to support this application. We would like to see ALC support on this before considering any zoning changes. Now, in conclusion, this greenhouse would be unlike most, if not all other greenhouses. We would be a testing site for new varieties of vegetables, which would provide our neighbors with fresh vegetables not grown anywhere else in the world. Approximately 330,000 kilograms annually, to be approximate. This is in part due to many lost acres from cannabis production. Last, it's the applicant's wish, and now it is ours, to use this ag business to educate our community on the beauty and the benefits of locally grown, healthy food. And so I'm glad to offer our council today an opportunity, pending the support of the Commission, of course, to increase agricultural output, an opportunity to protect farmland, and an opportunity to benefit the future of agriculture in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. My voice is going. Richter, you're on. Councillor Richter.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you as well for inviting members of council to come in and actually see this for themselves. And I note that the largest piece of the property is already in crops. It's growing corn. Yeah. But perhaps you could tell the rest of council what you told me when I was up there about how the clay that's on the front part of the property, where it came from and what problems it's creating for the farmer there now that leases the property.
Yeah. Yeah, so the 8 acres we're trying to subdivide is exactly the 8 acres that was, when they were developing Walnut Grove back in the 80s, they dumped all of the fill on this 8-acre section. And that's why when you look at it topographically, you can see the surrounding land is about 2 or 3 meters above sea level, too low for a greenhouse. This particular piece with the fill brought in is higher, and that allows it to be used for greenhouse production. The farmer next door brought his tractor over with his 3-bottom rollover plow and got stuck. He waited till it dried up, and then he started pulling up concrete. So he wasn't able to extend the farming operations from the one part of the land to the other. That's also a vital part of what the Agricultural Land Commission looks at in an application. They want to see continuance. You can't continue anything here, which makes this application quite unique in that regard.
Now, is it possible to remove the clay that's up there?
Quick math, that's a lot of clay. 8 acres, 4 meters above sea level. I would have to do the math. That would be 120,000 trucks or so. No more than that. 240, I think, 1,000 trucks. That's a lot.
And building a greenhouse,
Yeah.
Can you build a greenhouse on a clay base?
Yeah, that's one of the advantages of greenhouses, because you only have to dig your footings down to a hard pan, and then you have to level, of course, the inside. That's something I would love to encourage other folks to look into with land that is not agriculturally viable. And a greenhouse can produce 25 acres. Per acre of greenhouse, it can produce 25 acres of crop. I mean, 1 acre is 220,000 kilograms of tomatoes, for instance, every year. That's everybody in Langley could have 2 kilograms of tomatoes, I suppose, from 1 acre of greenhouse.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And now you're only going to put one greenhouse on that, or are you going to put
It'd just be one, yeah.
just one? Okay. And also, we've heard a lot in the past about the need to support younger farmers and help them get an opportunity to be able to do what it is that they love to do, which is grow food. Yeah. And I understand from you that you've worked out a pretty unique arrangement with the landowners in order to foster a business opportunity,
Yeah.
a farming business opportunity for yourself. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I really want to share this with other people too, this idea of when you don't have the capital to purchase a large piece of property, but if you have the idea and you have the business plan, if you're willing to give up some equity, trade equity with the landowner, you can facilitate. You might not own the whole thing, but that's not a bad trade-off. It's better to farm something than nothing. So that's the overview, the rough overview. There's a lot of particulars to it, but I look forward to sharing it with people and helping people do the same thing I'm doing.
Okay. And my last question is, so if this was to go through and get ALC approval, how long do you think it would take before the land becomes operational in food production?
Yeah, that would, I was looking at the report. It would still have to go back to zoning, it had to be rezoned. I don't know how long that process takes, because there's the public aspect of it. The property right now is, you're allowed to build a greenhouse on it. You can. So I would think, fast forwarding in time, we could probably start building as soon as the ground dries up next summer. You start laying your foundations, the walls. So on a good day, 2020, spring 2020. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Councillor Fox.
So just quickly, in terms of the chance to talk some of the nuts and bolts of this. So
Yeah.
You've been to Farm Credit Canada, so you obviously have developed a business plan associated with this. Is that correct?
Yes, it was a rough business plan, which adapted over time. Yeah, with their recommendation and with their requirements.
With their requirements.
Yeah, when you're asking for a lot of money, you have to be willing
Okay.
to be flexible. So.
So the property, again, visited the property, undulating and so on. Do you need to build any fill, or would this be a rough grade of existing?
I did some math, and I believe from the high point near 88th and 223A, that's about 9 meters above, and we can actually get the fill from there and bring it to the other side. I think we'll be okay without bringing anything in.
Okay. Would your intention be to build a house on this?
That would be nice, yeah. I would love to live on the property. I mean, I haven't talked to the owners of the property about that, so I don't want to get ahead of myself. But that would be, well, Fort Langley is a beautiful place to live. So.
And greenhouses are very popular these days for growing some green leaf plants.
Yes.
I'm not sure it would be too friendly if all of a sudden it got converted from vegetables to something else. I guess the point being, would you be prepared to put a covenant in place which would eliminate the concern of many parents with respect to new greenhouse operations, or many residents, sorry, parents included, with respect to growing cannabis?
Yeah, absolutely. I would actually like to start a trend in that regard with new greenhouse builds to covenant them right from the beginning, not to grow cannabis, cultivate even young plants, anything. But absolutely be willing to covenant that. Yeah. And I would expect and desire that so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Whitmarsh.
Thank you, Mr. Howling, for coming today, and it was nice to see the property as well. I appreciated the time spent there. The question I had was around the future idea of having to subdivide this and subdivide the property. Could you why not just go ahead and do it on that 8-acre piece anyways and not worry about subdivision, since you can't put a greenhouse there anyway? So just expand on why not do that.
Yeah, there are a few reasons. I'll give you probably the most basic or simple one. Farm Credit Canada doesn't want to lend money when the property has the rest of the property. For instance, if the doctor and his wife retire and want to move, or some health issue happens, they need to move. Now you have to sell a property with a working business on there. Farm Credit's the one who has the security on it. They don't like that. So they want separate security on its own title, on a new title, and that's what they recommended me to do. So that's probably the reason it makes most sense.
Right. So from a financial point of view, that really isn't a possibility, because you're saying that the ability to borrow the money to run this business would not be possible unless you actually did subdivide the property.
Yeah, exactly. This business, if subdivision doesn't happen, this business isn't happening. Because I can't go somewhere. I mean, it would be much easier just to go to a different property even. It doesn't work that way. I don't have enough money to do that. I don't have the capital to buy the property and build the greenhouse.
Right.
I only have the capital to build the greenhouse.
Right. And so unless you put something like a greenhouse on there, it also is not going to really be used for agricultural purposes. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Well, I'm sure you could probably put a turkey barn or something like that on there. There's probably some things. It's too small for a dairy. Sorry. I'm not saying there's no other agriculture, but not this, for sure. Not this.
Right. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you very much for coming. I know the piece of property. I drove past it in the 70s on the school bus, but I think it was around the 90s that they filled it up from. It was a swamp, and is the floodplain, when you talk about, is it primarily going to be retail?
Pardon me, sorry?
Is it primarily going to be retail that you're?
No. The retail aspect is kind of neat, because when you're trialing new varieties of vegetables, these are not mainstream varieties. And so the retail is a seasonal thing, only when the tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers are ripe and you have surplus. The retail aspect would be an opportunity for anybody, public, to come and to actually purchase from site. It would be a seasonal thing. You can't grow all year round.
So my next question was, you mentioned it's a new type of veggie. What when you say just a different variety of tomatoes that are normally grown?
Vegetables are constant. There's three types of features to a vegetable: shape, color, and size. When you go to your local store, your market, they're primarily going for shape and size, not taste. That's why they don't taste so good all the time.
Okay.
Sorry to any family that I offended there, but
sorry, no, but the proposal. We're going to deal with it in a couple minutes here, anyhow.
Yeah.
But you've drawn the line for subdivision, and that, I believe, has triggered the fact that it doesn't comply with our minimum lot size.
Yes, that's correct.
Have you thought of moving the line, or is there a solution?
There is none. The entire property is 21 acres. So in theory, the only way I could do it is subdividing 1 acre, which wouldn't be ALR compliant. So there's no real way. The surrounding land is R1, except for the east side. So what I would be trying to do is extending that RU1 zoning line about 200 feet to the east. But that would be the future. That's not at this time.
Yeah, I guess if it gets too complicated, it gets too complicated. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Qualley?
Thanks for being here. I'm sorry I missed the tour last week. I was away, but I appreciate the opportunity. You and I have had to talk about this ahead of time. Is the greenhouse going to sit on a concrete slab?
No. Concrete slab greenhouses are practical for certain applications. They're not necessary for all applications. Tomatoes are, and peppers, but all tomatoes are grown now in gutters that hang above the ground. You don't need a level floor per se. Concrete floored greenhouses would be ideal for bedding plants, that type of thing. I don't even know about cannabis. Maybe they'll grow cannabis on concrete. I'm not too sure. So.
They do.
Yeah. But no, this one would not be. There's no need for it.
So if it's not a concrete floor, and forgive me, I'm not a farmer, would the greenhouse stay, would it be viable all year? Does it stay warm enough in there without, without the concrete floor where you can control the temperature of the ground to grow tomatoes and other?
Yeah, you don't grow tomatoes in the winter here. You'd start in February and you'd grow right until about November. It's just not worth the cost of heat.
Yeah, that's what I was, especially without the heat control in the floor.
Yeah, not all greenhouses have heat in the floor. That's kind of more of a state-of-the-art thing. I don't have enough money for that, but radiant heating in a greenhouse is kind of cool. So.
For the farmer especially.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Councillor Arneson?
Yes, thank you very much. Unfortunately, I was one of those ones that wasn't able to make it for your tour, but we have talked a little bit about it. And having read the report, I'd like to circle back, I guess, a bit about this idea. I understand from a conventional lending point of view that they want you to have a certain amount of certainty in the land assets so you can make sure in case things do happen that the bank would feel secure in that loan. But I am just wondering, in terms of balancing these interests, because I'm sure that you recognize from looking at what our bylaws are on lot sizes and all those different things, the challenge is to find the right balance of interest. And I can tell that you're very intelligent and creative and you've given a lot of thought to this. And so I'm wondering, maybe just to go back prior to getting the Agricultural Land Commission to look at this to see whether or not there mightn't be another viable way that you could consider. And I'm not sure about if long-term lease holding would work or anything like that. But, I do know that I guess the federal government's most particularly in terms of agriculture, they're really keen to help people, to give them grants and funding and things like that. And I'm not sure if you looked into that as a resource potentially for your purposes.
Yeah, I have. And to put it short, I've talked to a few realtors, some very qualified realtors. I've talked to one property lawyer. The short of it is that Farm Credit, or I suppose any major lender, will not lend against a leasehold. It needs to be a separate title.
Okay.
I looked into that, and that would have been preferred, of course.
Yeah.
It saves a lot of this effort and stress and planning, but yeah.
So just to clarify, though, it's not based on, it could be the timeline, but then if the timeline is uncertain, sometimes I know that there's a reluctance to lend on a leasehold, but if it was long enough, that would give them the comfort to know.
Oh, yeah, maybe like a 99-year lease sometimes.
Well, at least 40.
Yeah.
You're a young man.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I had a conversation about this. That was a long time ago. That was maybe a year and a half ago or so. There was a problem with that. I'll get back to you. But
okay, all right.
There was an issue. There was a barrier there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have to advise council that it's 7:30, and we do have to start the evening meeting. So, Councillor Fox, you still had a question? Do you? Just real quick.
One quick question, if I could,
Real quick.
through your worship, to Mr. Howling. Farm Credit Canada, do they require you to do any geotechnical work prior to, what are the prior requirements to get credit from them in terms of geoscience? And
yeah, they've expressed that we'd be working together very closely. I haven't talked to them specifically about the geotechnical aspect of it. I would imagine they would. They wouldn't probably want to lend somebody too much money to build their greenhouse on the sand, if you will. But I would imagine they would be right there. They would require, I would require it if I were lending that much money. So
Okay.
I would imagine. So I can't guarantee you, though.
Thank you. There's no further questions.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this point, I need a motion to adjourn. Sorry, my voice is terrible. Adjourn to the end of the evening meeting. Okay. Councilor Sparrow, Councilor Davis, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried? I'll be very short today in my speeches.